Surround yourself with the people who understand the exact system you're playing in, and surround yourself with the people who will expand your mind, who will teach you to approach it in a way that nobody else is doing. That's disruptive. That's how you get to the top. Reaching out to that billionaire level will put your growth trajectory. You'll become a rocket ship.
Hello, Sales Nation. I'm Will Barron, host of the Salesman Podcast, and welcome to another episode. On today's show, we have Geoff Woods, and you know what? I only put out content that I think is really good, is great, in fact. Occasionally, I have to bin off a show. I obviously tell the guest, and it's a bit awkward. Every few weeks, I get a show like this one with Geoff, where it's not just progress, and I feel like I've learned something from it as well, and so I know you guys are going to learn. There's shows that come along like this one where I have to take a step back and really think about what I'm doing. And we're talking about mentors in this episode specifically. And I've come away from this episode with Geoff thinking my number one priority in the next quarter, in quarter 3, 2016, is to find a number of mentors that are primarily probably quite local that I can really spend physical time with, because I think that connection is important to me personally. But it's genuinely changed how I'm looking at doing business, improving both my sales and business acronym in general. And so I've got to applaud Geoff for that. And the sake of it, in the space of an hour, he's really drilled something home to me that I think is going to be equally as important to you guys. And so I don't want to bang on about it all in the intro, because clearly we need to get into the show and get you guys listening to our conversation. But you can find out more about Geoff over at geoffwoods.com. He's got a tremendous podcast called the Mentee Podcast. It's available on iTunes and all the usual places. I link to it in the show notes over at salesman.red. And with that, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, Geoff, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thanks so much, Will. Glad to be here.
You are more than welcome, sir. And today I want to talk about a topic that's increasingly important to me, and it's something that I'm going to suck a load of value from this, because I'm going to put a lot of this into action. And we're going to talk about mentoring and the concept and the ideas behind all of this. And on your website, there's a well-known quote of, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." So I want to start with that. And again, to put it into context and perspective for the audience and myself, is this something that you have personally put into practice? And is this something that you've personally had results from?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that has completely shifted my life. For anybody who's watching or listening to this, I want you to imagine a big dream. The biggest dream you could possibly imagine, something that you can't perceive a way that it could possibly be your reality. I had some dreams like that. I wanted to be a business owner. I was, at the time, in medical device sales. I was earning a very nice income, living in Orange County, not working a lot of hours, working from home, like amazing quality of life, really comfortable golden handcuffs. But my dream was to own a business. My dream was to be making a massive impact in the world. My dream was to wake up just jazzed every day, knowing that not only am I making an impact, but I'm taking home over 7 figures a year. And I couldn't perceive a way that this could possibly happen. And that quote shifted everything. And long story short, I ended up being able to quit my medical device sales job and go from employee to entrepreneur in just 10 months because of that single quote.
Amazing. So I know this from a bit of research about yourself. You may not know this, that my background is very, very similar. I worked in medical device sales. I went from one endoscope company, and you probably know that if you're in the surgical or that side of things, one endoscope company to their biggest competitor. And I felt the same way of, well, no, perhaps I felt slightly different. I was coming from a negative perspective, whereas you were seemingly leading towards an aspirational positive goal. I was trying to get away from the fact that I didn't really like it, but it was great money and I was comfortable and all these other things. And mentorship is something that really shifted me and pushed me to do the podcast full time and to make these shifts. And it was one of my mum's friend's son is a business owner in Liverpool. He super successful entrepreneur, not in like the tech startup billionaire sense, but in the sense that he runs 3 small companies. He probably has, say, 100 150 employees, different buildings. He owns buildings. He's made more money from the buildings than probably the business itself. But he's now comfortable and he jumps in and out of them. And that's what I aspired to after speaking to him. And he gave me the confidence to dive into all of this. And so to, again, put it into further context, because this is important, because these conversations can go crazy high level. I want to put it into deeper context. Should we be wanting to hang around with billionaires, and should they be our mentors, or should we be hanging out with people who are perhaps those 1, 2, or 3 steps above us in where we want to be in the future?
I think it depends. I think it depends on what your goals are. I can tell you that the answer is probably both. For me, when I'm in medical sales, and you said something really interesting, was you were moving away from pain. The actual catalyst for me to make that change was the same. A colleague of mine, one of the reps in the other territories, had a stroke when he was 35. And I'm sitting there going, holy crap, I've got a wife, I've got a baby, I've got a mortgage. If something happens to me, they're screwed. And then the next week they slash my income by 40%. So you've been in sales, you've dealt with commission structure changes, territory realignment, all those things. That all happened. And my income plummeted. And we almost ran out of money. I'm wondering, how am I going to keep the house? And so I had that same fire that you did, where I'm moving away from pain. And initially what I did is I said, okay, where do I want to be? Where do I really want to be? What do I want to be doing? And I got clarity around that, which is what people first need to do. This is going to drive the answer to your question. What's that goal for you? Where do you need the most help? And then being able to describe the ideal person to guide you in that situation. I wanted to get into real estate investing, and I knew that I didn't want to go residential. I wanted to go commercial. So I got clarity on the fact that I needed to surround myself with successful commercial real estate developers. It didn't matter about how many steps ahead they were. It was about, I knew specifically I wanted to get into commercial real estate. I can figure it out on my own, which is the way that most people do it. Or the new way is go to the people who've already freaking done it and let them tell you what to do. And so I surrounded myself with those people and had the opportunity to get into commercial real estate as a result. I think anybody who in their heart, deep down, they have a burning fire to make a massive impact in the world, they really want to scale a big business, reaching out to that billionaire level will put your growth trajectory, you'll become a rocket ship. And I know this from experience because I've now moved to Austin to partner up with Gary Keller, who is a billionaire, who started Keller Williams, the largest real estate company in the world. And being able to sit down with him on a regular basis to present my vision to him for our company, and for him to then, with his relationships, with his experience, with all his knowledge, to be able to pour that into me, holy crap. I have learned so much in 6 months that I can sit down with pretty much any business owner and add value to them, because I now think like a billionaire, even though I'm not one yet. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I want to come back to a point that you've made here, perhaps indirectly, in that, well, twofold. One, should all, and this is clearly a leading question, but should all salespeople be aspiring to be, do, and change the lives of more people than what a salesperson perhaps can? Or is it okay to just be in sales? Because, after this episode, I'm going to have no audience left from everyone wanting to start businesses, retail, investing, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. I think very few people are actually totally suited to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner. I think that sales is one of the most valuable skills in the world, and we will always have a need for salespeople. And there are certain people where 100% that is your fit. But I say it this way. A lot of people, for some reason in our culture, we think that you have to be number one to be really successful. If you were employee number 17 at Facebook, you'd be very happy right now. So I think it's a matter of looking in your heart and saying, do I want to be number one? Do I want to be that ultimate decision maker, but also have to carry the burden and the weight of wearing that crown? Or do I want to be just a really awesome number 2, number 5, number 10, and be the person that drives the revenue? It's all about you. But whatever that fit is for you, once you get honest with yourself, now it's about, all right, who are the best in the world at what you're doing? And can you surround yourself with them to the point where they legitimately pour into you, that they share their secrets with you, that they have a vested interest in your development? What do you think will happen to your career? What do you think will happen to your personal growth when all of a sudden you have people like that in your life?
Amazing. Okay, so I'm glad we cleared that one up, because I think there's a lot of hype about entrepreneurship. I know a lot of my ex-colleagues who worked in sales, always wanted to run a business, but then just stuck it out in sales, and they felt like they were missing out, but they were clearly not suited to, and they excelled at sales. They were clearly suited for where they were. So I don't think that half the audience needs to make that leap, and I don't think it suits everyone. And I think that's an important point to just reiterate there.
And one really key thing here, if you are considering making that leap, I am not a fan of the burn the ships, quit your job, and just throw a hope to the wind and hope that you're going to be successful. I think that's stupid. If you're in sales, you likely have control over your time. Start building something on the side so that you can wake up one day and be able to choose to leave your sales job or not. That was my original goal. It wasn't necessarily to start a company. It was to start a company on the side so that I could have the choice.
That makes total sense. I did it the opposite way around. I didn't burn any ships. I'm still in contact with people at the company, but I had to quit because my brain does not work on, I don't know whether it's because I'm a bloke, I don't know what it is. I cannot focus on more than one thing at once. And so to make a real effort, and perhaps there's other underlying issues, which is a whole different show that I'm sure we could dive into from the psychology of it all. But yeah, I know that I have to jump both feet in to be able to make a commitment and move like that. And I want to come back to something you said then of best in the world. For the salespeople specifically that are listening to this now, I can think of a couple of angles for this, which I'll explain perhaps after I've got your insights here, Geoff. But should salespeople be aiming to get mentorship? And we'll come on to the how, why, all that in a minute. But should they be getting mentorship from other salespeople, or should they be looking for other influences to help them in their sales careers generally?
I'm going to keep coming back to it depends on what your goals are. But
okay, I'll put it into context then. You are a B player in sales in your medical device company. You are, say, middle of the leaderboard. You work hard. You're not getting sacked, but you're not getting the 100 plus K bonuses that are available in that market. And you want to up your game. Perhaps you've read sales books. You know all the knowledge. You're probably not implementing it as well as perhaps what you could do. You need more motivation. Who would be the mentor that they should be looking out for?
So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the people who are where I want to be. I'm going to the people in my organization who are getting those 100K bonus checks and figuring out what the heck they're doing. And I'm not just going to them asking for help. I'm going to them trying to position myself in a way that we develop a legitimate relationship, that they want to help me, that they feel a sense of ownership over my success, that my success is their success. Okay? I am attaching myself to them at the hip. I am hanging on to them like a freaking koala bear. Okay? That's step one. But then, and this is my perspective now, one of the people I've gotten into relationship with, his name is Jeff Hoffman. He's one of the billionaire founders of Priceline.com. And he tells the story about how Priceline came to be. And he does something called info sponging, where every day for just 10 minutes, he looks out into the world with a sense of wonder, a completely different industry that has nothing to do with where he is. And he just studies it 10 minutes. And for him, he would start to write things down on little sticky notes and he'd put them up on the wall. And one day he's looking up at his wall and he sees bananas. He had walked by a fruit stand and he noticed that when fruit goes bad, it expires. So it has an expiration date. He sees internet and he sees airplanes. And he goes, bananas expire, airplane seats expire, internet. And in that moment, a series of dots were connected and boom, Priceline was born. So the reason I'm telling you this story is not only is it important to go to the people in your organization who are thriving, but it's important to go and look outside your organization at the people who are crushing it in sales, because they may bring a unique perspective to you that you would not have seen. When Gary Keller and his partner Jay Papasan, they wrote The One Thing together, were looking for a CEO for their publishing company, they specifically wanted to hire somebody who had zero publishing experience, because the publishing industry is broken and they didn't want somebody who has a series of bad habits, who's carrying an anvil around with them of this is the way that we've always done it. They wanted somebody who would come in and look at it and question everything and say, that's stupid. Why do you do that? So my answer to you is both. Surround yourself with the people who understand the exact system you're playing in, and surround yourself with the people who will expand your mind, who will teach you to approach it in a way that nobody else is doing. That's disruptive. That's how you get to the top.
And I want to add, you covered both bases here, and I want to add another one as well, which I'm sure you'll agree with. And it sounds so simple, but I only did it in my last year or so in medical device sales. So I was in theaters selling to surgeons. I started hanging out with surgeons out of work and not trying to sell them anything. And one of them was a good customer, but that was, we built enough rapport and had enough relationship to not consider work activities when we were hanging out and drinking or wherever it was. And I learned an awful lot from him about how to deal with and it's this massive stereotype, but unfortunately it's true, of these arrogant, cocky, alpha, old school surgeons. As soon as I started to hang out with him on a less business and more personal level, I could then replicate that and the rapport that builds so quickly, rather than having this weird corporate head on and talking a bit more like this and doing my presentations in my suit and having my slides. As soon as I could dive in, swear a bit more, push them around in theatre, have a bit more of a laugh with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
My relationships got deeper with everyone else, and that was from having him as a mentor. But, and this is what I want to come on to next, which I find this really interesting. I never said he was a mentor. I never called him up and I was like, John, will you mentor me in the ways of being an alpha, arrogant surgeon? We just spent time together. So should mentor-mentee relationships, should it be a formal titled thing of that nature, or should you just be spending time and hanging around people that are where you want to be?
Well, I think your experience really illustrates the path, Will, and it's something that happens over time. I think one of the worst things that you can do is walk up to somebody who you'd like to mentor, you drop and point blank say, will you mentor me? Because what you're legitimately doing, for the men who are listening to this, it's like walking into a bar, seeing a gorgeous woman, dropping down on one knee and holding up a ring and saying, will you marry me? You're asking for a commitment. And what you're really saying to them is, you're successful, I want to be successful, will you give me your most valuable resource in the entire world, your time? Will you commit to giving it to me on an ongoing basis for free? That is not a compelling value proposition. So, like you experienced, there's an initial encounter. You hang out, you ask for help, you take action, you ask for more help, you take action, you ask for more help, you take action, and it builds. Because here's the shift that people don't necessarily realize. I want you to imagine the heaviest hitter in your entire world that you could perceive having in your life. And I want you to go get him as a mentor. There's going to be a series of limiting beliefs that pop up. What are some of them for you, Will?
They don't have time. I'm not close enough. Essentially a whole bunch of excuses. And it's interesting you asked that, because these are genuine. I would use these as genuine excuses right now in this second. So right. I'm not above any of what we're talking about at all.
Right. What I'm about to offer you hopefully will change the way you look at things. Because when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Any person, I heard this directly from Jeff Hoffman. I heard this directly from Brendan Burchard, because point blank, I asked them, why are you talking to me? These conversations are recorded. That's what my podcast, The Mentee, is all about. And you heard Geoff say, at one point in my life, I had somebody who reached back, grabbed my hand, and helped pull me forward. They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for me to wash their car. They just asked that one day I pay it forward. And now clearly I'm in a position where I have everything I could possibly want. I've got the money, I've got the fame, I've got the fortune. I just want to make an impact. And I believe deep in my bones that entrepreneurs will change the world. So I believe it is my obligation to mentor the next generation of entrepreneurs. That's a quote. It is my obligation to mentor the next generation of entrepreneurs. How is it possible that a billionaire feels that every day, just like he puts his feet on the ground and breathes air in, it is his obligation to help you? Every person who is at a certain level of success has had a mentor, and without fail, they are all now in the position where they want to pay it forward. They are looking for you. So by you simply showing up and saying, I am willing to take your advice, I'm willing to take action on it, I'm willing to get results, and I'm willing to share that success with you, you're adding more value to them than they are adding value to you. The power is in your hands, actually.
I love this. I'm getting fired. I've got a massive grin on my face. I'm getting fired up with you saying this. And I'm hesitant to stop you because you're clearly on a roll here. But I just want to play devil's advocate for a second. And again,
please.
I like the show to be as practical and as applicable and as useful for the audience and myself as possible. How does this makes total sense? I agree, and especially if someone can share some knowledge, it takes way less brain energy and brain power to regurgitate something that's going to be useful for someone, perhaps. And I'm dumbing it down here, than the slightly untangible effect of feeling great when someone puts it into action and you get that response back. So I can totally understand that the balance of value here makes total sense. How do you practically go about getting a mentor then with all this said?
Yeah.
Because if I wanted to get mentoring from someone and I could give that speech that you just give to them, they'd be like, yes, come and live in my house, because it was so tremendous to listen to. But of course, then when you come back into the reality of things for a second, do we email them? Do we tweet them? Do we stalk them? Do we just keep turning up when they're playing golf and stand next to them? Do we offer to wash their car just to get a foot in the door? How do we go about doing it?
I realize now that I've been down this journey for almost 2 years now, I've stopped, I've turned around, I've looked at my journey and said what worked and what didn't work. And I realized there was a series of 7 specific steps. We could be here for hours diving into all of them. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to just discuss the most powerful ones.
Of course, yeah.
If for anybody who wants to see the full 7, it's just findthebestmentors.com. I have it as a PDF right there, so you guys can just have it and go through it. It's a full action guide. There's 2 paths here. The first is a quote that a mentor shared with me that is 80% of everything you need is already within your circle of influence. I want you to think about that. 80% of everything you need can already be tapped into through your existing network, the people you already know. This is where the concept of 6 degrees of separation comes into play. You can be connected to anybody in the world through just 6 degrees. And I'd argue that with the internet, with social media, it's even tighter now. It may be 2, it may be 3 degrees. So now it's a matter of just tapping into your degrees. And this is why at the beginning, when you asked about the process, I said, it depends on what your goals are. You've got to get that very specific clarity on where you need help with most right now. When my journey started, I wanted to get into commercial real estate. And then I asked the question, who would be the ideal person to guide me? Well, someone who's successful in commercial real estate. Let's role play this live for you, Will. Where do you need help with? Where do you need help most right now? Out of everything that's going on, what's the one thing?
I'll put it in context. And so it's not right now, but it'll be in the next 12 months or so. I want to start doing more, well, not more, but some real estate investments. So probably not commercial, probably multifamily from that perspective.
Cool.
And this would be really useful. So I'm at the very beginnings of, building a bit of a team, learning more about the industry, reading books, but no action has been taken from this point, purely because I'm in the process of building funds myself to be able to invest in the first few.
Cool. So let's get hyper specific. You say not commercial, which means 5 units and up, but you mean multifamily, so 2 to 4 units. Is that correct?
Correct.
Cool. So if you had to describe the ideal person who could guide you, how would you describe them in 1 to 2 sentences?
Someone who I would describe them as someone who has multiple of those unit blocks, who lives local enough that I can, of course I'll travel and see whoever for the right value, but lives local enough that I can perhaps help out and spend time with without it being a massive faff. And I might be narrowing. I might be maybe I'm being too optimistic with that.
Nope.
I'm not sure.
I love it. I love it. So you want to get into multifamily real estate investing, and you're looking to meet successful real estate investors who own units between 2 and 4 units, who have a decent portfolio here in your local area.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a dating ad,
right? Okay, but there's a reason, because you got that clarity. It's like if you don't have that clarity, who knows what you're going to bring into your life? But when you are hyper focused and able to rattle it off in one sentence, like I just did, it's hyper specific. Because again, we're going to leverage the 6 degrees of separation. You've already got existing relationships. Now it's a matter of how often are you sharing those? I mean, of all the conversations that you have in a day or in a week, how often what percentage of the time are you mentioning that?
0. I'm in my own head of it a little bit at the moment.
So let me share with you a way that can now happen in all of your conversations. When you pick up the phone and you call one of your friends, you pick up the phone and you talk to anybody, how does the conversation usually start? What's up?
Yeah, hey.
What's new? What's going on, right? What's the common response to
that? Not much. How are you?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how probably 99.999% of us conversations start like, what's up? Not much. What's up with you? Not much. And the conversation continues. That I realized I actually did this was a missed opportunity. That is your opportunity, Will, to say, when they say, what's up with you or what's going on, you go, you know what? A lot recently, I haven't been sharing this with people, but I'm starting to. I want to get into real estate. And I'm looking to meet some really successful multifamily real estate investors here locally who own a portfolio of 2 to 4 units. And you zip your mouth. They asked you what was going on. They asked you what's new. You told them. You zip your mouth. You're not asking for anything. They're going to ask questions about that. Now, one of 4 things happens in this moment. The first is they happen to be that real estate investor and you had no idea. This happened to me, okay? I had no idea that the guy was in real estate and he's like, you know what I do, right? Actually, I have no idea. The second option is that they're not the person, but they may know someone. Again, you're tapping into those degrees. And in that moment, when you say that, if they know somebody, just on a raw human level, we want to help people. It feels good. They'll consider making that connection. Well, let's say number 1 and number 2 are not the case. They're not that real estate investor. They don't know the real estate investor. But in that, what you've done is you've planted a seed in the back of their mind. And as they go and meet new people, if they come across that person and that light bulb goes off, they're going to consider making the connection. Or the 4th thing is nothing happens and what did you lose? Does this make sense?
This is brilliant because this can be used, and while I'm grinning here, this can be used depending on your business just to make more connections and network from that perspective as well. It is, as you described it, a missed opportunity, and I've never even considered it. It almost takes the awkwardness out of even asking for referrals and that kind of thing. If you just load up the conversation up front and then you've done it, and then you just carry on having the conversation afterwards, and it's less of an awkward. Because we've all had that conversation of, hi, how's it going? Oh, how's it going? Oh, how's it going? Yeah. Do you know anyone? And then you're diving into this weird sales pitch.
Right.
And I'm kind of twisting it on its head slightly, but I think that's useful in multiple instances. And I'm scribbling notes down here to use this myself. I really appreciate that.
Let me drive this home because it sounds so simple, but don't let the simplicity undermine the significant power of this. I have used this over the last 2 years, and it is one of the single most powerful things that I have done that has gotten me to where I am. The very first time I did this, I'm going to tell a story that's going to illustrate the power of this. I'm sitting down in front of a guy who I perceive to be a heavy hitter. I am really nervous. And he asks me what I'm working on and what's new. And in that moment, I just nervously blurt out, I'm looking to get into real estate and I want to surround myself with successful commercial real estate investors. And he sits back in his chair. And he starts rocking back and forth. I can tell the wheels are spinning in his head. And he looks at me and says, you know what? Come to my house tomorrow. I said, excuse me? He said, come to my house tomorrow. I'm having some people over. There's a guy there you're going to want to meet. This is the first time I'm sitting down with this guy. I think he's a heavy hitter. He's inviting me to be his home. So I go. And I end up meeting this guy. His name's Dave. Dave and I start talking. We like each other. We exchange information. We keep in touch over the next few months. I come to find out that Dave has done over 10,000 real estate transactions. And we built enough of a relationship up that he called me one day and said, you know what, Geoff, you remind me a lot of myself and I really want to help you. I'm taking down a building on the East Coast and I'm syndicating the deal. I'm bringing money in. Whatever you've got, however much or however little you want to throw into the deal, why don't you become a partner and get a front seat pass to this deal? You'll be able to sit on the due diligence. You'll be able to understand how we reposition the asset and get the vacancy down and the occupancy up, how we leverage out, how we do all this stuff. The very first time I opened my mouth and tried this, I had the opportunity to become a partner in a 10-story building on the East Coast. This was not a fluke. This has happened time and time again over the last 2 years because I have made this a habit. Does that make sense?
You know it makes sense. You know it does. And you just half answered a question and perhaps another awkward step in the process if it doesn't happen organically. And perhaps that's the answer in itself. You've got the contact, you've perhaps been introduced, and you said it was a couple of months and then it happened. Is that what we should be aiming for, of just building a relationship? And if that's the answer, and I'm sure it is, how do we make sure that, and I don't know if we can, how do we make sure that the roles are kind of defined and we're not just spending time with someone and being selfish slightly here? How do we know that we're going to spend time with someone and there's going to be something at the end of it? And this works both ways round. Of course, if you are thinking that you're mentoring someone and they're not taking action on what you're saying and what you're suggesting, then it's a waste of time. So I know the roles don't have to be, and it's probably weird if you're saying, my mentor XYZ did this. He suggested I do that. How do we, where are the boundaries is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I'll illustrate it this way. Let's say, Will, I want you to go walk into the bank of choice. I want you to walk into your local bank and I want you to open a brand new account. You sit down with the teller, you ask them that you want to open an account, they slap the papers down in front of you, they hand you the pen, you scribble it out, you sign the bottom, you slap the pen down, you push the papers to them, you look up and you say, I'd like to withdraw $1,000. What are they going to say to you?
Okay.
Have you put any money in the bank yet?
Oh, I see. Well, for the analogy, no, I think.
No. So you haven't put any money in the bank, yet you're asking to withdraw $1,000. What are they going to say to you?
No.
Why?
Because you're not given first.
Everybody understands this concept that in order to take a withdrawal out of your bank account, you have to have first put money in. Relationships are the exact same way. You don't just sign the papers on a bank account and say, I get to withdraw $1 million. You have to add deposits over time. Relationships are the exact same thing, and specifically the relationship with a mentor. So from that very first interaction, you have to look at, like, you just signed the papers. You are now face to face. You know each other. How are you going to make that first deposit? Again, this is where the limiting belief comes up. How can I add value to a billionaire? Let me ask you, have you ever received a present from somebody and it really meant something to you?
Yeah, of course.
How'd you feel?
Warm and fuzzy.
Warm and fuzzy. Now let's flip it. Have you ever cared about somebody?
Yeah.
And you gave them a present and you saw that it touched them deeply? How'd you feel?
Similar feeling.
Which was more powerful?
I know where you're going with it, but if I'm being honest, probably both the same.
Okay, fair. You're the first person to say that, which I respect, and that's honest. That's awesome. If you ask most people, it feels way better to give than it does to receive. I mean, giving is better than receiving. We've all heard this. It's the same thing here. And so that first exchange of value is you getting vulnerable and asking for help. I'll never forget, I was sitting in a pretty high-end mastermind. I paid a lot of money to be there. And there's a guy who gets up to speak. He's talking about how he had become the CEO of one of Samsung's companies by the time he was 30, brought the cell phone to the United States, left that job, became the CEO of the largest sports agency in the world. Jerry Maguire, that movie, was based on this sports agency. Guy gets to the point where he's worth almost $100 million in his 30s. And then he almost loses it all. Almost declares bankruptcy, loses his wife, his kids, because he surrounded himself with the wrong people, the wrong ideas. He had lost his gratitude. He had lost his empathy. He hit rock bottom. But then he rebuilt. And he had gotten to a level that it was higher than ever before, but this time his life was just so much more rich. And this is at the very beginning when I'm really lost. My income is slashed. I'm lost. I have no idea how I'm going to start a business, no sense of direction. And I'm hearing this guy talk. And he's just like this beacon of light for me that I've been searching for. And so he finishes speaking, and I know I have to talk to him, but I'm going, what the heck could I say to this guy? Why would he talk to me? What could I possibly do that would capture his interest, that would make him want to talk to me? That was my mind. Yet my body just started walking to him, left, right, left, right, left, right. And all of a sudden I'm standing in front of him, our eyes meet, and I realize, oh crap, it's time for me to say something. In that moment, I dropped my ego, and I said something along the lines of this. Dave, my name's Geoff Woods. First and foremost, thank you. I have been at this crossroads in my life where I have been so lost, feeling alone, and I'm hearing you speak for the first time, and I see a light that I've been searching for. And I don't know what I can do to add value to you, but if there is any way we can sit down so I can seek 10 minutes of guidance from you, not only do I promise that I will take action, not only do I promise that I will get results and share that success with you, but I will find a way to add value to you. Where do you live? How can we make this happen? Turns out he lived 1.5 miles from me. I had no idea. And that started a 2-year relationship. That first deposit on your end needs to be you being vulnerable. Needs to be you telling them why they're making an impact in your life, whether it's you've just heard their podcast, you've read their book, you just heard them speak, or you're very familiar with their work. But to be vulnerable and share why you need help and to ask for help and let them know that you know this is a two-way street. You know you need to add value back and you have every intention of doing so. I have not been turned down once when I approached in that way. Yet the times when I've asked to pick someone's brain, when I've asked them to go to coffee, when I've asked for a meeting, I get turned down a lot.
And you seem surprised when you are reenacting these stories. You still seem surprised that it's actually worked.
Hell yeah.
Is that a trait that you think won't change, as clearly you're going to keep doing this, getting mentors and perhaps going, well, there's not much further to go up the food chain than perhaps a billionaire from a financial perspective, but you get what I'm saying. Do you think that is just something that happens over and over and it's a discovery you continually make that, and I guess that's down to limiting beliefs, but do you think that's just something that's going to continue?
I do, but what's amazing is even though I know this stuff works and even though I teach this stuff on the mentee, I sometimes find myself getting overconfident. I now am in the position where I'm very confident in my abilities and who I've surrounded myself with. And I know that I know in my bones, I can bring value to people. And sometimes I try to come from that position where I'm the confident one and it doesn't work as well. I think the greatest confidence is that quiet confidence when you can have enough confidence in yourself to drop the guard, to just demolish the wall that you put up and be vulnerable with people. Because every time I do that, I don't care what position they're in that moment, we're the same. We're human beings. That's when the connection is made. And I have to constantly remind myself of this now and make sure that I'm approaching that way.
I did a whole show yesterday. I don't know if that's going to come out before or after this, on the topic of masculine emotional intelligence. And the summary of the topic was, the summary of the conclusion was what you just concluded with then, Geoff, of the true alpha, confident male, and it works for women as well, but from a different kind of energy, is the person who can be vulnerable in the moment, but is confident in their vulnerabilities and they're not whining and bitching and complaining, but they're willing to open because they're confident in themselves. So I think that was a really interesting insight that you brought up then. And I've got one final thing for you because we're running out of time here. And I could talk about this all day because I'm getting a lot from this conversation. And the final question I want to ask you to wrap up this part of the show is, and you alluded to it then with the mastermind that you said was expensive. Should we ever pay for mentorship, or is there enough people out there that will do it? Of course, it's not free, but will do it without having to be paid in cash up front.
It depends on your goals. You hear this over and over again. I think when you're starting out, seeking people who will do it because they want to invest in you is awesome. But for example, I knew that with my podcast, I wanted to turn that into a business. I wanted to turn it into a business fast. I could go and just try to line up conversations with people, which I did. I got into a relationship with Pat Flynn. I got into a relationship with Jordan Harbinger. I got into a relationship with John Lee Dumas. But they're busy. I needed somebody who I could have regular conversations with who there was no question. They needed to be invested in me. And I knew that I was willing to make that investment in hiring a mentor or hiring a coach. And in under a year, I turned my podcast into a 6-figure business as a result. So I think the most serious people, and this is what I've heard from Gary, this is what I've heard from Jay, the most serious people have coaches. They open up their wallet and they pay people because there's a level of accountability there. When you're putting money out, you will give yourself a return on your investment. You just hold yourself to a higher standard. And so I firmly believe in making investments in yourself. It's the greatest investment you could possibly make. Whether that's hiring a mentor or a coach, don't know. Whether that's buying someone's course, I don't know. Whether that's joining a mastermind, I don't know. Going to a live event, I don't know. It's what works for you. And
to pull all this back to the world of sales, very specifically, you perhaps only need to improve your sales performance by 2-3% over the course of the year by having a coach or by taking training or whatever it is, and you've clearly paid for it. So it's for salespeople specifically, I get really passionate about this. It is a no-brainer. It is absolutely no-brainer, and even more so when a lot of companies are pretty poor on training people how to sell, on pretty poor on training salespeople how to be more interesting, more charismatic, build rapport, all the stuff that you can't learn from a feature and benefit list about the product, which is what most corporate sales training is based around. And with that, I've got a couple of questions, Geoff, that I want to ask you just to wrap up the show. I ask everyone that comes on the show these questions, and I know you're not an out-and-out sales professional, but of course, everyone sells, and I'm sure you'll have some good insights. First one, who do you think is the world's greatest salesperson?
Ooh, the world's greatest salesperson. Oh, man. Bill Clinton comes to my mind because of his ability to make every single person that he speaks with feel like they're the most important person in the room. The ability to recall someone's name years, decades later, because that's the sweetest sound to anybody, the sound of your own name. Right, Will?
Mm-hmm.
He comes to my mind. I haven't put a lot of thought behind this. I have a better answer, but I'll stop there.
No, that's the whole point of these questions, that I'm trying to throw you a little bit to get your initial thoughts. And the next one, and I want you to go deeper with this rather than my clients or the people I work with, making them feel good, making them more money, and that kind of thing. Go deeper than that. What motivates you to close more deals?
Impact. Without a doubt, impact. I have experienced, and for the salespeople in this group, you're all alphas, so you get this. I am a very strong alpha male. And when my income got slashed by 40% and I legitimately questioned if I'd be able to keep a roof over my family's head, that challenged my identity as a man. And I know how grateful I have been for the mentors I've had in my life. I literally break down into tears on a regular basis when I talk about this, because the impact that they have made in my life, the opportunities that are ahead of me. And like we talked about, that giving and receiving, as great as it feels to receive that, to see how it's taken place in my life, to now flip it and give it to other people and see them say that their life has been changed, pales in comparison. That is way more valuable. And so what I sell, I live. What I sell, I breathe. And what I sell, I know adds value.
Amazing. Thank you for that candid answer. And final one, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give him to help him become better at selling?
The moment that you look inward and be honest with yourself about who I am, not who the cool kids are, not what I perceive people want me to be, but who am I? The moment I'm willing to plaster that up on a billboard, throw it out in the world and say, this is who I am. I put my feet, I plant them in the ground. I draw the line in the sand. This is who I am. The faster I would attract all the right people into my life, and the faster I would repel all the wrong people out of my life. And when you're suddenly surrounded by people who call you up to say, how can I help you? What's going on? What are you working on? I want to support you. I want you to be successful. As soon as you are surrounded by people who want to rise you up, then you are on fire. If you have people in your life who question you, who criticize you, who pull you down, they are literally poisoning your future. They are toxic. Cut them.
Do you think, I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to twist this around slightly. If I ask you this question in 10 years' time, do you think you'll still have the same answer about the people that you hang out with now, because all this will be more refined, or do you think you've got it nailed?
I think my answer will be the same. I am no longer worried about what people think about me. I am who I am. I throw it out there freely. I've seen the people that have come into my life, and I am so hypercritical. I am so judicious about who I allow in my life, who I allow within 3 feet of me. I don't think that changes. Who those people are will change over time, but I recognize how valuable this is right here, my mind. And I protect it. I only allow positive influences to come in.
I love it. I love how passionate about all this you are. It just proves that you've bought into it and genuinely believe in it. And with that, Geoff, to wrap up the show, you've mentioned the podcast. For everyone who's listening now on their iPhones, iPads, I think it's a really good opportunity for you to tell us the podcast, a little bit about it, and so everyone can pause this show, subscribe to yours, and we can drag some listeners over there. And then, of course, the course as well. I think you should tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm excited about all this. So I know the audience are going to be as well.
So the podcast is called The Mentee. And this came about because all of a sudden I'm surrounded by some really successful people like the Daves that I mentioned. And I pinch myself and go, holy crap, I am so blessed. I'm accelerating so fast. And I'm selfish because I haven't been sharing them. Not everybody gets to sit down with the guy who built Tony Robbins' company. I do. Not everybody gets to sit down with the guy who was almost the CEO of the Green Bay Packers. I do. Why don't I just record the private conversations that I'm already having and throw them out as a way to add value? And that is what the Mentee has become. I'm recording my private conversations with my mentors, and I share them with you as a way to upgrade your 5 and accelerate your life. And so that's what the podcast is about.
Amazing stuff. And I know you've got a course as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I quit my medical sales job to partner with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, who co-authored The One Thing. And this was hyper relevant for salespeople because I met Jay because he spoke at our national sales meeting. He was talking about The One Thing. They bought a copy of the book for everybody in the company. It was that important.
Did they have half the sales force leave after this, though?
No. I was so drawn in by the message of The One Thing. It was so powerful that I formed a relationship with Jay and ultimately ended up creating the opportunity to be their CEO. And so we surveyed our audience, and the number one thing they said they needed help with was time blocking. It's the concept of taking your highest leverage action, your one thing, and making it a habit that sticks, having it on your calendar. And we created Time Blocking Mastery, which for anybody in sales, you want to talk about an ROI, this is it. So we actually have a free training on it. If you just go to timeblockingmastery.com, you can get it there.
Amazing stuff. And for everyone listening, Sales Nation, all the links that we've mentioned in the show, all the books, we'll link to in the show notes over at salesman.red. And with that, Geoff, I really enjoyed today's conversation. I really want to thank you for your time and for joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Thanks, Will.
And there we have it. Thank you, Geoff, both for your time. Thank you for your insights and the bit of inspiration that you've given me, in fact. That's probably the best way to describe it. I want to thank you, Sales Nation, as always. I say it every episode, but there'd be no show if you guys did not listen. I massively appreciate your time. Hopefully you got something out of this episode as well. And with that, I'll speak with you all again tomorrow.